All right, let's keep talking about what happened today in Minneapolis. 2 kids dead, killed through the windows of a church as they were praying at school mass. 2 kids killed as they were praying. Joining us now, president of the gun violence prevention group, Brady, Chris Brown, and senior writer at The Trace, Michael Spies. Chris, I'm going to start with you. Let's talk about the Second Amendment. Let's talk about guns. Where are we?
Well, we had made a lot of progress until President Trump took office, to be candid, Katie. We saw across this country in cities, including my own city of Washington, D.C., a material reduction in violent crime. 40-year lows in D.C., and that's replicated elsewhere. But to be clear, President Trump is reversing all of that as quickly as he can. He's defunding the ATF. He's attacking many of the kinds of protections we put in place that allow better control of firearms in this country. And he's moving backwards the funding in key communities to stop gun violence in its tracks before it begins, that Congress actually funded as part of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. So indeed, at a federal level, we are going absolutely in the wrong direction.
Mike, you've been reporting on guns, the culture of guns, the violence because of it for a long time now. How long?
Like a decade.
Like a decade. The saying goes, or the belief goes, that Americans want the Second Amendment. Americans want to be able to own guns. Americans believe that the best way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. More guns, the better. That's the NRA and lawmakers tell us, Republican lawmakers mostly, say that we want more guns. Don't touch it. America is safer and better off, and they feel better if we have more guns on the street.
Right. That is what they say. It's also just a lie and not true. And the industry, the gun industry itself, knows it's not true because their own research says it's not true. In fact, it says that most people, the vast majority of Americans, don't think that the only way to stop a good guy with a gun or a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. And most Americans believe that stricter gun laws would make the country a safer place, and they want them. And that research dates back to 2018, like right after Parkland happened. So they've been continuously thwarting the will of the people. And on top of that, by the way, just to be clear, gun carrying itself has also made people who own guns feel less safe. So it's not according to their research.
This is their research that we put up on the screen?
That's right.
It's your reporting. That is internal research from the gun industry?
Generated by the gun industry's trade group, the National Shooting Sports Foundation, which represents its interest in Congress and elsewhere. Yes, that is their research.
So if the majority of people want stricter gun laws and the majority of people don't feel safer with concealed gun permits and people having more guns, why do we live in a country where those rights are multiplying? Why more people are having guns? Actually, you tell me this. Do more people own guns today, or is it just a small subsect of people who own guns?
It's a small subset of people that stockpile firearms. They're known as like super gun owners, and most people don't own just one gun. There's actually it's like a line you cross. It's very hard to get new gun owners into the door. Like first-time gun owners are a very small piece of the gun purchasing pie, if you will. But then once you get them through the threshold, you immediately can get them up to like 7, 10, that sort of thing.
So help me understand this. The majority of Americans want stricter gun laws.
The majority of Americans also don't own guns.
And the majority of Americans don't own guns.
Right. And a small minority of Americans own a lot of guns.
Why does the majority of Congress believe that they cannot touch any gun laws?
Well, we have one party, the Republican Party, who wholly absorbed the gun rights platform over the last 25 years because it was politically advantageous to mobilize this very politically active group of voters. And then you have the Democratic Party, which has been stuck in the year 1992 and hasn't really come up with a useful policy idea since then, and also, more importantly, has allowed the gun rights group to dictate all these gun policy debates on their terms. So it's all defensive. No one ever goes on offense. No one ever tries to hold gun owners themselves accountable. There's this constant line that always gets trotted out. Oh, gun owners are the most law-abiding people in the world, which is itself like a semantic trick, because in order to own a gun, technically, you can't be a felon and you can't have been involuntarily committed. But most Americans are not felons and not involuntarily committed, right? So What that background check system doesn't account for is a propensity for violence, anger management issues, substance abuse. All these little things that would indicate that somebody might carry out a violent act are just not part of the equation. And Democrats just don't try to make it an issue when they talk to Republicans.
I know this is maybe not pertaining to this specific circumstance, and obviously, we're going to learn more about this individual suspect, Chris. But what Mike is talking about is relevant to talk about. We so infrequently have the conversation broadly about guns. We only have it in situations like this, and you get a lot of hope and prayer and or thoughts and prayer, and you get a lot of, we're going to take action, we're going to do something. It never happens. The majority of the people in Congress who say they want to do something are Democratic, but they can't seem to find a way to convince Americans to vote for them, to put them in enough of a majority to get it done. Why is that?
Well, I'm just going to push back a little on that, Katie, because while I agree that too infrequently we see coverage of gun violence and the everyday reality of it in America on the news, it's too often just in reaction to mass shootings, and this tragic one as an example. The reality is we did get a major law passed. Only a few years ago, the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, 16 Republicans voted yes on that. Of course, yes, that was in reaction to the horrific school shooting in Uvalde. Those were material changes to law that happened as a result of that, though. It's too infrequent.
Explain the
needs to
material
happen
change.
more.
Explain the material change, because I think some people would say it was not enough.
It's certainly not enough. It's never enough because it's the #1 killer of our kids. But we can't ask for everything and have it happen. But I just want to push back that nothing has happened. That bill provided unprecedented funding for community violence intervention all across this country. It provided incentives for every single state to do what Minnesota did after this law passed, which is to pass extreme risk protection laws. I don't know who we should have known about this here, but it could have been very helpful here, and that is to allow the temporary removal of firearms from someone who is deemed at risk of shooting themselves or others. There's a whole panoply of different kinds of things that bill put in place. It provided huge teeth to the ATF to regulate the gun dealers who are supplying crime guns to communities all across this country. The problem is this President Trump, is attempting to reverse every single one of those things. So where I agree with you is the voters of America have to understand our very lives are at risk up and down the ballot, whether it's a local race, a state race, or a federal race. Be sure to understand that gun violence is on the ballot and understand that you need to support the candidate, regardless of party, who is going to do the people of America's bidding here, which is everyone wants their kids to be safe.
Yeah. I mean, there have been a lot of mass shootings since Uvalde, though, and it may have been a step in the right direction, but it's not stopping these crimes, Chris.
Yeah, because we have a public health epidemic. There's no one thing, Katie. We need stronger background checks. We need to make sure that that's across the board. We had an assault weapons ban in place. Jim and Sarah helped pass that in 1994. Congress allowed that to elapse. Brady has been pushing that for years and years. We need to federalize these things because we live in mostly contiguous states. But gun laws work. We know that. We have the research, which they're also trying to take away, by the way. But states with stronger gun laws have fewer gun deaths in injuries per capita than any other state. California, with one of the highest populations, the highest population, has among the lowest gun death and injury. Why is that? Because they have better laws and better enforcement. Think about doing that federally. I will not accept, because I lead a gun violence prevention organization, but I'm also a mom, that we're not going to do everything we should do. And I think the time is now for all Americans to stand up and say, this is important to me, regardless of party, regardless of position. I care about my kids, and I'm going to make this a priority when I vote. And then we'll get the elected officials to go along with us. Until we do that and make it a priority, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's definitely on the American people. Chris Brown, thank you so much, as always.